Good morning, folks. It is Johnny here, and it's been a while since I've talked to you last. Last time I think I talked to you was the start of January this year. Um, I remember thinking to myself, okay, things are just starting to heat up, and I did outline, different things like Jack Ma and the way the party was going and everything like that there. And now we're kind of getting to crunch time, April. Whenever I think that this is just gonna be blown wide open. I've decided to start doing a daily kind of update list on what is going to be happening in the war, so you don't feel as bad and you can kind of keep up to date with all the news that is going on. Today I'm actually going to do. It's the 1st of April today, and I am going to do a kind of like a recap of kind of like some of the important things that's happened over the last couple of weeks that I think are noteworthy. I'm just going to be telling you about them there and how they're probably implicated to leading towards the war. Um, so we're going to start with the month-long military exercise from the 1st of March to the 1st of April, really, where the Chinese decided to essentially just hold a military drill for, a month, just in and around Taiwan, who they really desperately hate, by the way. So this is kind of, in my eyes, it's like an intimidation because like fighter jets were flying through Taiwan constantly, and it's also to kind of set up for their actual invasion of Taiwan, which the waters will become tame-ish during the month of April, which is kind of like the only one of two times in the year where Taiwanese invasion is possible. So that month long kind of military exercise, it's really like it's just really put Taiwan on the back foot, and everyone else in around that region has kind of been feeling the repercussions of it as well, because it's just basically China just flexing their might again, which as a world superpower, I guess you do have to do, but at what expense is this military exercise? You're just kind of alienating all the countries around you who eventually will think that you're going to take over them. So realistically, it's not. I mean, I don't think it's a nice look for China. Um, and with this year, with these military exercises, they decided to expand their control of the South China Sea. Now, South China Sea is obviously a disputed territory, and nobody has basically give China the right to be like, oh yeah, that's ours. But China, over the last couple of years, have been developing archipelagos or whatever they call them, like these man-made islands, so that they can claim these islands and therefore claim the sea around them. Um, on in March 2021, so just last month there, they essentially sent out thousands and thousands and thousands of fisher boats, giant fisher boats, but instead of fishermen on them, there was militiamen. So if there was kind of any kind of contestant from the Philippines or Vietnam or anywhere like that there, the militiamen would probably just sort them out with a few rocks or just aggressive behavior, and just further stating their claim on the South China Sea. So I think they totally like the total amount that they tried to claim here with because at the start of last month they kind of like pushed out like that there to kind of just surround this big middle bit. I think it's like the 9 point control or something. But they tried to essentially just expand their control, just this whole middle bit's ours. And which, if there is a war coming with the siege of Taiwan, and if they control that area, it's going to be an awful lot harder for allied forces to get in and get intel in that area, even to support that area, because it's technically under China's control. Um, and I just think this is a really aggressive stance, and the fact that it hasn't been called out more by global nations or by other nations is a bit silly, because it's kind of just like you're going up the stairs here and you're going step, 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 invasion. Um, but the good news is on this here as well, Taiwan has been addressed as a country. So before really 2021, it was really Taiwan was really known as the Republic of China. Now, the US and several other agencies within the US and different other parts of the world have came out and said that Taiwan is a country and they do business with Taiwan itself. And that's very well and good. It's definitely angered the Chinese. So they've been like, I think they sent a message to NASA the other day. It was just like, oh, you need to fix your mistake, which is pretty crazy. It's like, oh yeah, fix your mistake. You call Taiwan a country. It's definitely not a country. Oh, and this kind of also sparked more debates whenever the US and China were having a discussion in Alaska. Talks kind of broke down in and around the US's meddling in China's internal affairs. And you'll never believe it, but Taiwan is apparently China's internal affairs. So we shouldn't obviously get involved in that there, which is just silly. Um, but yeah, the meeting between the US and China did not go well. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Um, but this was the meeting did not go well with China, and just basically it was like a 2 hour slagging match. Basically, just like you can't do this, you can't do that, blah blah blah. But it didn't really work out. So that obviously escalated tensions between the US and China. So they're definitely not in the best terms now. And then the idiot, I think it's a very silly move. President Biden decided to call out, he decided to call out Putin. Basically, just called him a murderer, like, straight up, like just like you're a murderer, Putin. Or like, and I mean, like with the whole Navalny thing, like it's kind of like acceptable, but in this time, the timing of that there has never been more like idiotic, and considering that China are basically, gearing up for an invasion of Taiwan, and their closest power, who they're quite friendly with, Russia, is probably going to be like, okay, I'm on your side, F the US, because they just called me a murderer, they just called my world leader a murderer. So that's not going to be going well for them there. And I'll go along there with that. Russia and China have been developing these missiles, these hypersonic missiles that can go at like 6,000 miles an hour, and they're the two countries in the world that they're the furthest ahead of this here. I think like Australia, Britain actually announced that they're very very recently, and the US are just like years behind, and these things are going to be very very instrumental in a war if it does come, because whenever it's very hard to defend against a hypersonic missile. I can go from like Beijing to the US in like minutes, under an hour maybe, like 6,000 miles an hour. So it's a lot harder to defend against, especially, and they're all nuclear capable as well. So you could just strap on a nuke, send it 6,000 miles an hour, and in an hour that's New York dead, something like crazy. But yes, so Russia successfully tested a hypersonic missile in the Arctic, which kind of just means if they have got a super working version, they're going to be sharing it with their powerful friends, which is China, who can then mass produce it. And we are looking at an incredibly devastating missile launch scenario. I just hope that maybe it doesn't work out as well, but I guess we never know what will happen. And yes, one of the biggest things that has happened there, like last week. So over the last year or so, the whole Xinjiang Uyghur Muslims has been a really big thing, but nobody has publicly came out and demonized China for its treatment of the Uyghurs and the genocide that has been going on there. And to be fair, China keep a really, really, really tight lid on what happens there, and they do it really well. But it is obviously, I do not agree with the practice. I don't think it is a good practice to uphold. But they are very good at keeping control of it, because like out of the thousands, millions of people, like only a few have like slipped through to kind of testify against the treatment. Um, but it's the whole idea of re-education camps, the genocide, the sterilization, the poor treatment, which is just not on anyone's nice list. And the world, so the US called it out, Europe called it out, and basically huge brands as well are just like, you know what, we're boycotting the Xinjiang cotton, and holy God, China do not like this at all. So I bet they're looking at it right now like, okay, so the world's against us anyway. We have got to the position that we're in because people really need our goods, and we're really good at manipulating our people to produce no cost labor. So we've got ourselves to the position where we are now have a lot more control. So let's just try and cut our ties. So they were just like, you're gonna regret cutting ties with China, like H&M, places like that. They're just like, you're gonna regret it, like basically taking the high horse, like, oh, stinking. And they won't let UN investigators in, which is ridiculous. And they're just like, nah, we'll handle this internally. We haven't cleaned up our act enough yet to be have global eyes. Why would we let external journalists in China? That's disgusting. Yuck. Um, but yeah, the Xinjiang boycott has been it's been just escalating over the last couple of last week or so. So it's going to be interesting to see how this influences China's global position, and what they're going to be doing next because of it. Next, we've got the Taiwanese airspace is constantly getting encroached by the Chinese fighter pilots. So during this month-long kind of encroachment and military exercise done by China, um, there has been constantly fighter jets going through the Taiwanese airspace. And like, what can you do? I mean, because, right, the position that they are in now, if Taiwan shot it down because they were in airspace constantly, they would be looked at as instigating a war. But if they don't shoot it down, then China are just getting more and more up-to-date intel about all the strike zones they need to be hitting, that to absolutely cripple the Taiwanese economy. So it's a really, really difficult position that China have put Taiwan in here, but I just hope that Taiwan's diplomatic relations have aided them enough to secure help from the alliances. And like, it was ridiculous. It was like yesterday or the day before that a Taiwan or a Chinese fighter pilot was in Taiwanese airspace, and he was obviously told get the fuck out. And he replied with something like, it was like, this will be ours soon. And it's like, that's just the way they think, because they're just indoctrinated so much to be like, China number one. But it's good, but it's definitely not number one, especially in terms of government structure and how they're actually handling this time in the world. I think it's just very aggressive, nasty, and just no place for the future. And yeah, going on to what's just been happening recently, which could maybe have an effect. It's funny, a Taiwanese company, the Evergreen or Evergreen, they blocked the Suez Canal there in Egypt, and there recently for about a week. I think it was just out there yesterday, and everyone was just like, wow, it was memes everywhere about it. But it'd just be interesting to see if this held up enough goods that would kind of have an ongoing effect on, just how everything was being handled throughout the world. It's like, oh, it's kind of like set economies back like a week, and some people rely on those goods that they're not getting, and it's probably just like a lot of electronics. I doubt there's very much food on it, but I guess we don't know. I don't know what's on those like thousands and thousands of containers. But I definitely think that it had some kind of knock-on effect somewhere. But it's just pretty mad that it was this Taiwanese shipping vessel. Maybe it was done on purpose by the Chinese to try and get bad faith to the Taiwanese, but ultimately it just was a happy kind of meme kind of thing, which is okay. And lastly, this is fresh news today, the 1st of April. The new Chinese submarine. So it's massive, like it's like 4 times the size of the Russian submarine that's like the biggest in the world, and it can hold 48 nuclear capable missiles. which is always handy. And this was unveiled today, like this giant submarine, and it's just pretty crazy. Like it looks like an absolute behemoth. I think there's only one of them, but I mean, it's just an absolute giant. And they've just unveiled that today, which I imagine will kind of put them. So if they've got 48 nuclear capable missiles in a submarine, they will just send that. They can literally just send that anywhere in the world. Just be like, okay, we're holding your country hostage. We can bomb 48 big cities here. So if you want to survive, just you surrender to the CCP, which I have no doubt will be in one of their game plans somewhere along the line. And I just hope that this thing doesn't get mass produced like heck, because I can imagine it costs a very pretty penny if it's 4 times larger than the largest submarine in the world. But yeah, as I said, I'm going to be doing these daily updates on how the war is going. Today is the 1st of April, and we're just going to be seeing more and more stuff being hitting our kind of newsreels here soon. I just hope that everyone stays safe. One of the best things I can recommend is stock up on food and learn how to kind of grow some food, and just make sure that you do have, I guess, an evacuation plan. If you are in and around Eastern, East Asian, no, never. Just in and around Asia in general, I think the South China Sea is going to be really heating up, and you know, you just gotta take it as it comes. Just be prepared and try and be glad. I mean, realistically, the only way we're making it out of this situation is with unity, and I just think that we do have to come together whenever we've settled our kind of differences a bit. I think we really do just have to come together and just realize, look, we've got to work together for the sake of the world. Look, we pretty much almost destroyed it there. We just got to be very careful. But yeah, the 1st of March, the 1st of April 2021. I'll see you folks tomorrow. Bye.